Hello, this is John Milburn for PROP13001 Property Development. We're now getting towards the end of the unit. We're getting to the pointy end of the unit. We're also getting to the pointy end of our hypothetical property development process. So this week we're looking at marketing and sales, and you might think that that's the end of the line, that's the end of the process. That's what we consider as the final step. Well, it might seem that every step that we've undertaken, I've indicated to you, must be considered from the outset. And largely that's true. In my view, it's appropriate, indeed necessary, to consider marketing right from the concept stage. So have a clear idea of what it is that you intend to do with the completed property development. I guess there's a basic fundamental issue here, and that is, are we going to sell the developed property, or are we going to keep the developed property? And if we're going to keep it, on what basis will we have it generate income? Usually that would be a leasing arrangement, but not necessarily so. And it depends, of course, on the type of development. In a mixed-use development, it may be entirely appropriate, for example, if you're going to retain the development as a source of income, to seek a pre-commitment from a commercial tenant and have an agreement to lease where the commercial tenant commits to a lease once the property is ready to be handed over. In terms of residential, that's probably not as important. So there are a few issues here in terms of marketing, sales and leasing, and indeed there may be a hybrid. It may be that your strategy from the outset is to obtain a commercial tenant to occupy a commercial space within the property development so that that is a more attractive proposition for sale to an investor who's looking for that immediate return and not wanting to take the risk of having to secure a tenant or the delay associated with that. So marketing needs to be a strategy from the outset. It's important for another reason, and that is, in order to properly market the project, it needs to get up and running. In order to get up and running, it needs typically finance and support through a financier. And the financier will want to know cash flow projections, and implicit in that is some clear indication as to the likely sale price or leasing price and the timing of those things. So they need to be incorporated into the cash flow projection. So from the beginning, we need to know as accurately as possible how we go about marketing the properties, how long it will take to market, how much it will cost to market, and ultimately what is the likely sale price as a result of that marketing process. There are, of course, factors that need to be considered from the perspective of the potential buyer of the property development. Is your potential buyer able to obtain incentives from a government, say, for example, a first homeowner scheme? Are there special incentives being offered through state government or through local governments that may be keen to draw people, population base into the region? So there are a few things that you need to consider there. Also, if you're a commercial property developer looking at, say, office space, you may need to consider the issue of rental or lease incentives. That's all part of the marketing process. It may be that you're looking to obtain the best per square metre rate possible, but in order to do that, you may need to provide an incentive so that someone is willing to occupy the space. That incentive typically would be either a contribution towards the fit out, or it would be a rent-free period, or perhaps both. And all of that needs to be factored in, and a clear idea from the outset as to what your strategy will be in terms of all of those issues. So marketing and sales sound simple. You think, well, we've finished the project, we then list it with a real estate agent and we sell it. But it's far from simple. There are a whole range of things that need to be considered. But let's look at the typical scenario of a property developer who has a property developer whose intention is to sell the completed project. Marketing is usually done in conjunction with external experts, And prior to commencing the promotional activity, the developer, the agent, and other consultants need to identify the strengths and weaknesses of particular property development. One of those strengths might be its location in terms of transport, or its location near schools or employment, or transport lines generally. Alternatively, if it's a more remote region, its strength might be in terms of the isolation. It's a great place to raise a family, or it may be in terms of an industrial site, an opportunity to avoid high costs for a potential developer occupant of that site. So there are a whole range of things, and it's not an exact science. Therefore, it's a matter of trying to provide the best information possible based on what you've got. So speak to a number of people in terms of how to market the property and think about the strategy. Now, years ago, of course, it was all paper. People would advertise their properties for sale in the paper. The Saturday or Sunday lift out was huge. Each week there were thousands upon thousands of classifieds. A lot of that has been replaced, of course, by the internet, and the online presence is critically important. Internet has taken over from print as the preferred medium. It's lower cost, it's wider range of audience, it's not reliant upon someone happening to buy a newspaper at the time that you're about to advertise or release the property investment. It means that you can update the advertisement as much as you like, and it provides an opportunity for a higher level of professionalism. For example, over the internet, you can provide links with videos or other issues that wouldn't be available in a paper presence. One thing that you might want to consider is some form of opening ceremony. Now, this depends on the size of the project, but obtaining indications of interest from parties and then having an open ceremony generally might provide the impetus for you to stand out from the crowd, as it were, in terms of marketing. In 1988, developer Mike Gore put on the ultimate event, which was an extravagant opening. It continued for 2 weeks, and Frank Sinatra and Whitney Houston were flown in, amongst a whole range of other sporting and other celebrities to market the Sanctuary Cove Resort. So I imagine that will probably never be repeated, certainly in my lifetime, but it's something that you could consider. Now, when you're speaking with agents, if you're looking at real estate agents, think carefully about the basis upon which you engage the agent. Agents would typically like you to engage in some form of sole agency, which means that the agent will be paid in certain circumstances and ideally, from their perspective, an exclusive agency, which means that the agent is entitled to a commission irrespective of how the property is sold if it's sold within a certain period of time. In a sole agency situation, the property developer or the agent still needs to be the conduit, the reason for effecting the sale. You can try open listings, but the problem with open listings, of course, is that it provides a disincentive to real estate agents to sell, knowing that there are competitors out there with the same property for sale. And it's too easy to find yourself in a situation where there might be a dispute between agents as well. All right, so whether you're the agent or you're the marketing consultant or whether you're the property developer, you need to be aware critically of the Australian consumer law. So anything that you say in the context of marketing must be subject or must hold up under scrutiny. Let me just share the screen for a moment and look at issues to do with misleading claims and advertising. So it doesn't matter what type of business you're in, whether you're a property developer or you're selling items in a retail outlet, you need to ensure that what you advertise can be supported as an accurate and truthful message about the product that you are looking to sell. So it's critically important that you get that right. There is some documentation which will provide you with an overview, the Australian Consumer Law Framework Overview, which is on screen at the moment. All right, so consider that, and also think about the particular ways in which you might be able to provide local advertising. Usually that means having a look at the local laws enacted by councils across the state, which deal with things like outdoor advertising signs and other issues. Illumination, electronic display components are also important. So I've provided links in the study guides, in particular to a database of local laws, which is enacted by councils, and that's worth having a look at. There's a lot of really good material in relation to property development generally that might assist. So I will share the screen just to show you what I mean, but you should be able to follow this link from the study guide fairly easily. So the local laws database is something that provides you with the databases of the properties and the different local laws around Queensland. Okay, now just coming back to an earlier issue, and that is sale or leasing prices and terms. You need to think very carefully about this. Have a look at your textbook, chapter 10.4.1, and ask yourself some questions. Now, this is important from the examination perspective as well, because you need to think about whether it's better to maintain a cash flow at the expense of maximising capital value, or is it better to, in other words, to what extent do you seek the highest possible price, at what cost, or do you take the lower price to ensure that the property is let, possibly minimise risk, but if you do that, again, at what cost? So bear in mind that the capital value of the building typically will be linked to the rate per square metre that you can obtain from a commercial or other tenant. So even though it might be attractive to secure a lower rate in order to get that building occupied, in order to get some cash flow, that will have almost an immediate effect on the overall final capital value of the building, and that may have an effect on your funding as well. If you accept a low rate for a commercial premises or an office premises, that will then be used as a guide by valuers as to what the appropriate rental rate would be for comparable properties, obviously the unit next door. So if you're developing, say, 3 commercial properties, three office spaces in a mixed-use development on a ground floor, then if you let one go quickly, cheaply, that will provide an incentive for others to negotiate with you at a lower rate. So the leasing rate will have a direct effect on the capitalisation rate. And property investors think about the available yield in determining whether the income is satisfactory return on investment. So there's a whole range of factors that might come into play. And it's for that reason, typically, with a view to long-term capital value of the property, that property developers will often consider a lease incentive, as I mentioned before. So that could be landlords' fixtures and fittings, could be tenants' fixtures and fittings, it might be a rent-free period. All of that is designed to ensure that the tenant is secured, but at a rate which in the long term protects the capital value of the property and provides a more attractive proposition for property developers. Property developers need to consider the strength of the tenant, the financial strength. So usually in assessing a tenant for a property leasing proposal, the property developer will want up-to-date financial details. And where it's a corporate tenant, think about getting a personal guarantee from directors. Because commercial leases have such long-term implications, it's also important that you consider obtaining a very clear statement from the tenant as to what representations, if any, the tenant is relying upon before entering into the premises. What we don't want is a situation where after 3 months, the tenant says, but you told me that this would occur or that would occur, and you're then you find yourself in a litigation situation. So try to secure something in writing that will have the effect of avoiding any ambiguity or potential disputes. Likewise, before having a tenant sign a lease, it's a good idea to have them sign a certificate to say that they've obtained legal advice, independent legal advice, and independent financial advice or accounting advice. You can take that one step further and actually have the lawyer or the accountant or the financial advisor provide a certificate to say, yes, I have provided legal advice or financial advice to the tenant in relation to entering into the tenancy, and my client is well aware of the legal or financial obligations imposed upon them. My client is upon them in terms of entering into the property. So when you're looking at marketing and sales, a whole range of things that you need to consider. As indicated, it's far more complicated than simply advertising something for sale through a local real estate agent. Okay, all the best. We'll see you on the tutorial. Any questions, please ask through UCrew. And just a reminder, for your exam preparation, please look at the weekly problems. Make sure that you have a good answer to each of those weekly problems. That will hold you in good stead come examination time. All the best.